How should we practice the piano in a time of pandemic? Here's a few ideas. First of all, those of us who perform professionally are not going to have any imminent performances in the next couple months. Everybody I know has had stuff canceled, and I'm absolutely sure my next couple events are going to be canceled as well. So here comes the alone time, here comes the downtime, which most of us look at as a bummer and financial loss, opportunity loss. But actually, this may be the most downtime you have as a pianist for many years to come. And in the future, hopefully after all of this blows over and life is back somewhat to normal, you might ask yourself, what will I wish I had done back when the world stood still? How will you wish you had used this time when suddenly everything came to a screeching halt? I mean, I look out the window and this is supposed to be a busy day on campus. There's not a soul in sight. There's just nothing going on. So here are 5 suggestions of things that you can do with your time. And of course, I'm making this video for my own students who are all stranded and have nothing to do, but of course everyone is invited to consider if they want to do this. Number 1, if you're always working on a big epic piece, now you can take time to learn a whole bunch of easy and intermediate pieces. This is a very strategic way of developing your musicianship. Many young musicians I've met have spent all of their time learning kind of big pieces that take a long time, and so they actually haven't learned that much music because they're learning only a few large difficult pieces and it takes a long time. So when you actually go through their life, they don't have that much life experience of looking at music, figuring out what the problems are, practicing it, setting up routines and regimens, performing, evaluating, going back, working on it some more. They haven't closed the loop that many times. Sometimes I meet 18-year-olds who've closed the loop on significant pieces maybe half a dozen times in their lives. It's just not very much. If you've only done, think of other jobs, things you want to get good at. If you've only done it half a dozen times, you're not experienced at that job. So learning intermediate pieces is a chance to close the loop multiple times in quick succession. Sometimes I'll give students, if I sense that this is part of their struggle, that they haven't closed the loop enough, I'll give them a new piece every week, something on an intermediate level that they can just devour quickly in a matter of a few days. And I say, perform it for me next week, and then we're going to talk about it, we're going to throw it away and do another one. So this is a good chance to do that. I often recommend the sonatas of Cimarosa, because Cimarosa, he's an early Italian gallant composer, more famous for his operas by far. He's got all these keyboard pieces that are really quite easy. They're fun. You can learn them, you can share them online with friends. You learn a couple, I'll learn a couple, we'll video and talk about them. I've done this project with my students where everyone comes in learning Cimarosa. They're available, there are about 60 of them if you actually get the complete version. There are maybe 20 or more easily available on IMSLP. Another one I recommend often is the lyric pieces of Edvard Grieg. Many of us know the more difficult music of Grieg, like the Holberg Suite or the E minor Sonata, but he's got lots of 1-page, 2-page pieces that are just great. Obviously there's lots more, but I'll just mention those 2 names. Second suggestion for practicing in time of pandemic: record yourself and make a list of things you're bad at. Now, nobody wants to talk about what they're bad at. And if you only play the piano therapeutically, kind of to make yourself feel good recreationally, there's not really a compelling reason that you need to get better unless you want to, because nobody depends on you improving. So, if you don't want to think about what you're bad at, you don't have to. But if you're aspiring to be a professional, you actually do have to think about this. If I'm aspiring to be a professional cardiologist, I really need to think about what I'm bad at. If I'm aspiring to be a professional airplane pilot, I really need to think about what I'm bad at. So, if you aspire to be a professional musician, think about what you're bad at. Record yourself, listen to it, and this list becomes your plan for future improvement. And, the professionals I know, we're all very aware of what we're bad at. I had lunch with Stephen Huff, the concert pianist, the other day when I was in England, and delightful person, and of course one of the world's top pianists. And he said one of the things he's bad at is that he always rushes through difficult passages, even though he knows intellectually it will sound better if he takes more time and plays with greater clarity. He just has this proneness to rush through it like you're trying to get out of a burning building. And so he's working on that because he's very, very aware of this struggle. And of course, the results speak for themselves in his playing. Number 3, now you have some time to go after a real technical deficiency. I saw this the other day. I was teaching at Royal Northern College of Music in Manchester, UK, where the level of playing generally is extremely high. And this young artist who was extremely intelligent, musical, talented, disciplined, he's got it all. There was one thing that was bothering him. It was in Beethoven. He was playing Opus 109. And when he left a group of notes and went to the next group of notes, he'd hold on to a note and try to twist his wrist to get there. Pretty much everything else about his technical approach was great. But this one thing was just tripping him up. And he wasn't all that aware of it. We talked about it at length, and I explained what I saw happening. And I think he believed me by the end of the hour. But that one thing is going to take some time for him to work on. He's going to have to sit down and kind of retrain himself in those moments. Well, now's a perfect time to do that. So take one technical deficiency that you're aware of and go after it. Maybe for some it's this playing with a collapsed structure, the collapsed joint, and you need to learn to have a strong joint there. For some, I don't know why people do this because it feels terrible to me, but some people just lay their entire fifth finger on a key like it's a dead snake. They just lay it there. And it's just such a difficult way to play the piano. It's so much easier. But these habits get deeply ingrained. So now, during pandemic, is a good time to work on that. Number 4, listen to some non-piano music in order to get a clear perspective on what the piano is good at and not so good at. Boy, with these long teaching days that I just had on tour, hearing other people and then having to hear myself all day long, you just get overloaded on piano. And so I would go to the cathedral at night to listen to the choir. Manchester Cathedral, they have a full-time choir there. And I will tell you what, listening to a choir in a cathedral will really educate you about what the piano can and cannot do. First of all, a choir is actually legato. They actually create tone and sustain it. It hangs in the air and doesn't diminish if they don't want it to. In fact, it can even crescendo. And it's this gorgeous blend of sound with no percussiveness. Just this beautiful, unbelievable sound. So I listen to that. I kind of take it in. I think, okay, the piano can't do that. So if I want that kind of sound, I need to think about how to minimize the percussiveness of the piano, how to get people to listen to the resonance of my instrument rather than the percussiveness. And it just educates us and reminds us about what our instrument is actually good at. What our instrument is great at is that because it's all being run by one person, you can make instant decisions about little things like rubato. You can do these cool little moments of push-pull with the tempo, and you can remix the balance in real time. You don't have to consult with anybody. So the sound of the piano is highly adaptable and highly individual. And then, of course, if you can get people to listen to the resonance of it, the ring of it, those are the real strengths of the piano. Anyway, listen to some non-piano music and just wrap your head around what are other musicians listening to? What are string quartet players like? What do they think is important in the sound? What about like a wind quintet or wind octet? What is important to them? Vocal music. Anyway, just get outside the piano a little bit. I find that people who get outside the piano sound way better on the piano. And this whole question of listening to yourself and being aware of your own sound is crucial. I don't know how many times I said this while I was over there teaching, but they have this, in Manchester, they have these great schools, Royal Northern and Cheatham's, and they're wonderful schools. The level is very, very high. Great kids. It was just a blast to work with them. But especially at the younger ages, they don't really think of, when you're young, you don't think of anything from anybody else's perspective. We're just naturally selfish when we're kids. We think of everything from our own perspective. And so young pianists often think about speed and volume and accuracy so that, they kind of get the social capital that I played it really fast, I played it really loud, I played it really accurate, because that will give you a good social standing in a music school full of young people. That has social capital. It's like being great at sports in a regular high school. But often they do all that at the expense of the listener. The listener needs to hear what's actually going on. What are the different layers of the music? The bass, the inner voices, the melody. We need to hear an interesting, clear dynamic plan. We don't know what's supposed to be going on in your Beethoven or your Chopin or your Messiaen unless you explain it through the way that you play. So anyway, I think listening to non-piano music really helps because it puts us in the seat of the listener who's trying to understand. So anyway, that's could be another whole speech. Number 5, I really recommend that young musicians start learning Partimento. Partimento is a training system from the Baroque Italian tradition that included essentially sight reading, harmonization, counterpoint, theory, accompanying, and improvisation, all in one activity. You really learn how music works from the inside. And you learn to think of music not as someone who reads it off a page and recites what it tells you to do without really knowing what's going on. You get away from that and you become more of a person who understands how the music was made in the first place and what's actually going on. So you become a creator rather than a reciter. And so I really recommend Partimento. I'll put some resources down in the description if you want to get into that with a little more depth. Boy, did I see the students in England excited about that, and Denmark as well. Everyone, here's the 2 questions I get about Partimento and improvisation. First is, why have we never heard about this before? I have to do another video on that. The second is, where can we go to learn more about this? Okay, so those are the 2 big questions I get. So, practicing in times of pandemic, you're going to have more time to yourself alone, and right now it just seems like a bummer, like the world is coming to an end, but they'll get a vaccine and we'll get herd immunity and things will get a little more back to normal, and you'll look back and go, what do I wish I had done with that time? So, a few ideas for you. I hope everyone is well. Wash your hands, keep your distance, do some social distancing. There's no better social distancing than practicing the piano because it drives everyone far away. They don't want to be anywhere close. So that's what I'm going to do. Take care. Talk to you later. Ciao.